Joining us with their reaction. Mickey McNamara is Executive Vice President at Zekelman Industries. Ravin Gandhi is CEO of GMM Nonstick Coatings. Gentlemen, good to have you here. Mr. Gandhi, tell me, what do you think about, you're against these tariffs. Are you pleased with the fact that we saw Canada and Mexico excluded?
Yes, I do think it's good because it's less putting us on the slippery slope to a trade war. But it was amazing to me to watch the president because, I mean, it's a fascinating time. Our president is a flat-out protectionist. And I wonder, has he ever been to a Walmart? Has he ever bought anything on Amazon.com? Because I do not know if Americans are willing to pay the prices if all of these factories that are going to flower up and foment and grow in America, as he says is going to happen, will Americans pay those prices?
He's not worried at this point, as you well know, with the consumer. He's more concerned about the producer, which he feels has been unfairly disadvantaged by the VATs and other tariffs that we have to pay when we export over there, and he's just trying to level the playing field. Is that what's happening here, do you think?
I agree with what Mr. Kudlow said earlier this afternoon, which is this notion of dumping. What does it really mean in a capitalistic society? You know, the market sets the price. And, you know, 45% of all the sales of the S&P 500 are to other countries. And how can we live in a world where the president, in my view, my opinion, he has his head in the sand and thinks that everything should be only made in America? I mean, is it really fair to demonize every American company that offshores? I think it's really, really dangerous.
Let's get Mickey McNamara in, Executive Vice President at Zekelman Industries. I'll bet you disagree.
Yeah, first off, I'd like to say it was really heartwarming to see President Trump and Commerce Secretary Ross speak with such passion and knowledge about the challenges that have faced our industry. And it's interesting because clearly they have a lot more knowledge of what's gone on in our industry than a lot of the people that have been commenting. You know, we get caught up in this price, and Mr. Gandhi likes to talk about the price and the free market and the market setting the price. And, you know, we talked about it last week. The reality is, in our industry, there is no free market price. A large percentage of the capacity and the excess capacity is subsidized. So therefore, the prices are artificially low.
Remind everybody what you guys make at Zekelman.
Sure, we're North America's largest pipe and tube manufacturer. So we're actually also the largest consumer of hot rolled coil in North America.
And Ravin, what do you think of that when he says, you know, China does have far more capacity than they need, and the government subsidizes it. So that way, as a result, a lot more steel comes on the market than otherwise would be. I mean, it's not economic to produce, except that the Chinese government is subsidizing those companies. Isn't that unfair?
Yeah, I do think that certain aspects of what he's saying are absolutely legit, and I absolutely agree with it. And I'm all for those steel workers. I think it's amazing to see those people. But I will tell you one thing. Every single day in my industry, which is a $9 billion industry, the housewares industry, every single day I talk to people, American companies, who think China's prices are too high. Too high, believe it or not. They are looking at Indonesia. They are looking at Vietnam. They're looking at Malaysia. They're looking at India. And all that
proves is that China is not the only bad actor in the world.
But then what are you going to do? This is whack-a-mole. If you believe in capitalism,
you're right.
It is whack-a-mole.
It's absolutely whack-a-mole, which is why.
And what do you think is going to happen to the 45% of sales?
Listen,
it's absolutely. You asked him a question. Let him finish.
One at a time.
It's absolutely whack-a-mole, and it's why it's important to apply the tariffs across the board. And when we have exceptions, we have to look at them very closely because exceptions lead to evasion. And if you listen to what Commerce Secretary Ross said, very clearly any exceptions will be limited and there will be other protections built in. So it absolutely needs to be addressed systematically because what the steel industry has been doing for decades is whack-a-mole. And in our company, we spend millions of dollars a year in trade cases against this country or that country, and when we get relief, the production and the product comes in from a different country. So that's what's brilliant about this approach is that it's systematic, and that in order to get an exception, you have to. There will also be other trade protections to support those exceptions.
Ravin, you make non-stick coatings. Ravin, let's talk about your business specifically. You make these non-stick coatings that go on all kinds of home appliances and things. How are you affected by the trade imbalances that we're talking about here?
Well, every day, 40 million people in this country, middle-class people, use my product on almost every single famous, iconic American brand, and those things are made out of steel, made out of aluminum. So,
but
to the extent,
talk about
Mickey, let him finish. Let him finish, Mickey.
Sorry.
Go ahead,
to the
Ravin.
extent the consumer demand falls, obviously, we would suffer very greatly. And I think that it's just, I just really cannot believe that the president is picking and choosing where to put his thumb on the scales, because I sympathize with Mickey. He is obviously an expert on the steel industry. But what about every single beleaguered industry in America? Where do we draw the line? Where do we stop saying, who gets to call balls and strikes? I mean, I really think it's a dangerous situation, because as soon as we get a little retaliation from one of our allies, Mr. Trump today said some of our allies are the ones that treat us the worst. Forget China. You guys are talking about China. What about the EU? He tweeted at VW and BMW over the weekend. That is very troubling times. And the fact is, what scares me is many, many Americans agree with the president. I do not. But, the president is not alone out there. There's a lot of people who believe in it. I just think that they are heading off a cliff, and it could be a big, big mess.
Ravin, thank you. Mickey, last word, real quick.
Well, I think there's a lot of people that support this and believe in it because they understand the market and they understand what's really going on in the steel industry, and that the tremendous negative impact that unfairly and illegally traded products have had on American steel and American workers.
All right, gentlemen, good discussion.
This time it's different. It's always dangerous
when
you say this time it's different. Thanks, guys.
A lot of passion.
Mickey.